This is a short video clip to help you understand the types of comparable data that are needed for the appraisal, and this is part of Unit 2. I want to acknowledge up front that there's going to be a problem, a chicken and egg problem, because we haven't discussed some of the things that we'll be talking about on the video clip, and I ask you to look at this as a preview. I think you'll understand it, and you may want to look at this clip again later on in the semester. The first category of information we need is for vacant land sales. Now, we should ask ourselves, why do we need that? Why would we need vacant land sales? Even in many cases, we need it if the property is improved. And the answer is to do the cost approach. And you say, but we haven't done that yet. No, we haven't studied it, and we won't until Unit 9. But I wanted to show you just a quick recipe for the cost approach, and it's essentially a three-step process. The first step is to estimate the reproduction or replacement costs new, and reproduction and replacement cost are not the same thing, and in Unit 9 we'll talk about the difference, and it is an important distinction. The second step in this process is to pull out the depreciation from the various sources, and we're not in this instance talking about income tax type depreciation, but instead loss in value due to wear and tear, or having a bad floor plan, or being on a street with too much traffic. But here comes the part of this that makes vacant land sale information fit in, because the recipe calls for us to add in the site or land value. And so when you take those three pieces, the reproduction cost new, back out the depreciation, and add back in the site or land value, then you get a value estimate using the cost approach. The next piece of this is for improved sales. And of course, we would ask again, why do we need that information? And the answer is to apply the sales comparison approach. Again, we haven't studied it yet, and we will in just a couple of weeks. The sales comparison approach essentially is using recent similar sales. Recent is a matter of judgment. Similar is as well, but recent sales and similar to the subject. And that's the reason for gathering data on improved sales. Now, we also have to gather comparable rental and expense information. And again, of course, we're going to say, how come? And the answer is so that we can apply the income approach, which we'll study later on. Now, we know what kind of information we need, we know why we need it, and where on earth are we going to get it? And so for vacant land sales and improved land sales, we can use proprietary databases, and I've listed 5 of them here. These are certainly not the only ones. Metro Market Trends is a Pensacola, Florida-based firm that has ties to FSU, and they donate Leon County data to us. And Leon County, for those of you who are not in Florida, is the county where Tallahassee is. CoStar is a much larger outfit. They probably will soon be nationwide, and they have very comprehensive data. Win2 Data is also nationwide. They're based in California. My experience with them is that they are not as comprehensive in the data elements that they supply as is CoStar. LoopNet is another good source. My firm subscribes to LoopNet. And then lastly, RealQuest, which is the same firm as Win2 Data, and my firm subscribes to their service, and we pay $150 a month for the right to download as many as 4,000 potential comps, and we do that all through the internet. Another source is property appraisers' websites. Most property appraisers are at the county level. Occasionally you'll see them at the municipal level. Some of them have really terrific sites, and even some of the very rural counties have very comprehensive information available to us. And then another source is other appraisers. And this networking process works quite well, and appraisers can share data. They can't share value conclusions unless their clients permit them to. But we'll talk about that later on when we get to Unit 15 and discuss the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. Perhaps the hardest type of data to gather is the rental and expense information that we need for the income approach. The revenue information is probably somewhat easier to get than the expense information, but the difficulty for all of this is that there isn't a central clearinghouse. CoStar, and perhaps some of the others, occasionally has information about revenue and expense, occasionally has net operating income, but you can't count on that. So that means that your source is primary research, and that means you have to go out and gather the information yourself by visiting these potentially comparable properties and attempt to gather the rental information and attempt to get the expense information. But again, which of those two is the more difficult to gather? And the answer is probably the expense information. A lot of the rental information is going to be essentially public in that you could ask them, what do you charge for a one-bedroom apartment? What do you charge for a three-bedroom apartment? And they'll tell you that. It gets a little sticky if you ask, well, how many one-bedrooms do you have and how many three-bedrooms do you have? However, some of that information is also in the public domain, and you can get it in other ways, even if they won't tell you. Another way is from published information, and I've just listed two sources here, BOMA and IREM. BOMA stands for Building Owners and Managers Association, and their focus is on office buildings. IREM stands for Institute of Real Estate Management, and they are an arm of the National Association of Realtors. Both organizations publish hard copy information and CDs for a fairly reasonable fee. And there are clearly other sources of information, but these are two of the most well-known. That's the end of this clip. If you have some questions, please email me or call me. You've got my number in the syllabus. I'll be glad to spend some time with you on the phone or answer your emails. Good luck with this.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, well, you might find